Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Jake Builds Gunpla. I'm hanging out here tonight. Gundam Dog is hanging around here somewhere. And we are going to be making some good progress, if not finishing, the ZAKUIIF2 kit. This is such a fun kit. I love the Zaku suits, especially in different colors beside the traditional red or Char's infamous crimson version. So while I was off camera, I did a little bit of work to this guy. All I did was some panel lining, and then I cleaned up the panel lining. So if we take a look here, you can see some of that detail that the Gundam markers really brought out. Right here in the vents for the mouthpiece, the little circles on the armor. That's all just done using a Gundam marker. You can use other model kit markers too, but I figure I'm making Gundam kits. I'll stick with the Gundam brand. And these are super easy to use. This is called a fill type. So all I do is tap the tip of the marker to the line that I want to bring the detail out in. And it pours a mixture of ink and alcohol out into that line and fills it up. Once it dries, I just clean it up with a cotton swab and I'm good to go. So we've got our tool set here. We finished up the head installation last time, so now we're on, looks like we're going to be doing some arm parts next. So we're going to need a lot of D's and a lot of PC's. D7. My faithful set here of my faithful Gundam nippers, they are finally starting to give out on me, sadly. This might be one of the last kits I use these ones with, which is a bummer because I've built many kits with these, but all good things must come to an end. Sadly, they are not springing back like they should. Then we need number 6 and number 5. Oh yeah, that's looking nice. Number 5, and then polycap number 11. I'm cutting 2 of these guys off because this particular step is done twice. So we got our 2 polycaps separated. I took all the parts off of runner D, but we have a second runner that is identical. So we will cut those off now. Just getting a little spring back, so maybe there's a little life left in these yet. I'm excited to make some progress on this guy. And hopefully he will be joining the ranks of my other Zakus very soon. Gundam Dog has decided to grace us with his presence. He likes to hang out and just be super chill while I'm building my model kits or playing games, whatever I'm doing. He is very chill most of the time, which is perfect because I'm super chill most of the time, so it works out. This weekend, he and I set out for an hour-long hike, and that 1 hour turned into 2, and we were both exhausted by the time it was done. It's 100% my fault. There's a short perimeter trail at a historical farmhouse right down the road from me. And then that trail connects to a nature preserve, which also connects to another nature preserve. And I intended to hike just one of the preserves. It should have been about an hour-long loop. Nice way to spend a Sunday morning. But the two preserves actually meet and cross blue loops, and it was quite an adventure. It was really nice though. I only ran into 2 other people the entire 2 hours, and one of them just said, hello, how's it going? Just quick in passing. And the other person stopped and asked about my dog, which is always fun. I have no problem answering questions about the goober. And she was also walking her dog, so it was nice. But it was a very quiet, very peaceful hike. It's a good way to unwind on a Sunday. As much as I enjoy model building and playing video games, it's definitely important to spend some time outside in nature. Try to get my dog out for a hike at least once a week in the fall. And Sunday was nice. Sunday morning it was high 60s, low 70s. It wasn't too humid. Very nice hiking weather. And then the temperature skyrocketed again, so back up into the 80s. So no hiking for us this weekend. But we will enjoy this last little bit of hot summer temps before it leaves us. It's good to hear from you, my dungeon master. Hope you are doing well. I cannot wait to see what you have planned for our next session, because I'm sure it is going to be terrifying. Just trimming up these little nubs here. This is one of those parts you really can't cut too close with the nippers, or else you're just going to really, really scar the part, and you're going to get some nasty discoloration. Which is why it's very important to change this razor blade pretty often. Oh, it's totally cool to hang out. No worries, man. Alright, so step 9 is done. Now we're going to do step 10. Actually, no, I lied. Step 9 is not done. Step 9 is nearly cut out and trimmed. This is an odd joint. This is a part I've not seen before. It's pretty slick the way they have it engineered, but it's a hollow section inside the joint, and the polycap actually goes inside of the hollow section. Works pretty nice though. Are you using Dungeon Alchemist to build the map or something else? All right. I have used Photoshop all of like twice. It was the free version, the Photoshop Essentials or whatever it was. When it comes to making D&D maps, if I'm not using Dungeon Alchemist, I am using Microsoft Paint with my incredible, pure, raw graphic design power. Making the most accurate maps, hands down. For anyone who's watching the VOD later, my artistic renditions are not the best. They're very comical, though. And that's actually my goal when it comes to making certain maps, especially if I'm using Microsoft Paint, because I know I am horrendous when it comes to visual art. Is I will just make maps so ridiculous and so poor that it's funny. Oh no. My arm joint has left the table. It made it all the way under the table and almost to my dog. That's impressive. Before I pick that up, though, there's a good example of this joint here. It's actually got some nice detail on it, too. I'm surprised. Let's see if I can do this with my feet. Oh, yeah. Our elbow joint has been recovered, or shoulder joint. I'm not quite sure what this is. Might even be the upper part of the forearm into the shoulder. All right, so we need D3. I talked about getting rid of these when I first started tonight because they weren't working so great. And they listened. They knew. Because now they're working just fine. So we have our two D3 sections cut out. Need two polycap number 5s. I remember when polycaps first became commonplace in builds, and when it was this scale it was fine, and it's still fine. It's a great concept for the smaller kits, but they tried putting them into the real grades, the perfect grades, and they just failed so bad because there's just not enough tension to hold a heavy arm joint up in a position. Now we need B2 and B1. This is a really interesting color, too. The box art definitely makes it look like it's going to be a stark white color. It is. It is not. It is a off-white, almost beige color. You know, very light tan. And it's very distinct from the other actual browns or tans that some of the Zaku kits come in. There's a very nice desert camouflage Zaku kit that was sadly a premium Bandai item, which means it's next to impossible for regular people to obtain. It's not even that it's that much more expensive. They're usually only like $5 more than a regular kit, but they limit the production number and they sell out so quick. It's a bummer. They've done a lot of very nice 1 in 1/44 scale Zaku kits for premium Bandai. The only premium Bandai kit I've gotten is my bright pink Zaku, which I believe is a master grade. They did a release of it years ago, and then they did a new version when they remade that Zaku, and that was only sold at a Gundam store in Japan. I was very thankful I was able to get one imported before the prices on them just skyrocketed. Because there is something I find pretty humorous about this menacing, gigantic mech armor of death that is bright pink. And in the TV show, it was made for a musician who was putting on a concert. She was like a pop musician, and it held her up on stage. And what I'd like to do next with it is actually get, and they're kind of hard to find without buying another entire kit, but getting the beam weapon parts, because it came with the axe handle, the Heat Hawk, but it didn't come with the colored blade effects. And if I could find some in either a pink or a purple, oh, that would look so neat. This is cleaning up pretty nice. A little more on this one. This is a very interesting color for one of these guys. I've got a Middle Eastern inspired Gundam kit that has these really nice brown and tan pieces. And this is totally different compared to that. Alright, that cleaned up nice. Just clean up these little junction pieces. I'm actually going to try to cut them a little closer. There we go. This is one of those parts that if you didn't cut that nub down about as low as you could, you'd have a real rough time trying to trim it with the X-Acto blade. Partially because of the material it's made out of. And partially because the nubs are right in the corner. It's not really a corner because it's rounded, so the radius. They're cleaning up pretty nice if you trim them down nice and low. On my Evangelion kits, I think it was actually only on the Unit 0 real grade. These parts were actually made out of rubber, and it was very interesting to try to trim those up just the right way. I am on a roll tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I have dropped another piece. And this one has yeeted itself right out of the chat. Oh boy. Alright, well, I'm gonna go meander around and look for this lost piece, so I will be back shortly. Stick around. Ladies and gentlemen, I have returned. I got some distance on this little part. That thing really went for a cruise. But all is well. I think my neighbor is getting ready to take his muscle car out for a drive. Because I can hear that V8 singing from my little hobby room here. So that looks fantastic. Now we can start assembling. So the slot sides go up. They are facing forward and back. This one has some very interesting directional ways that you have to angle this part just right. It's a weird setup, but we'll see how it works. So... B1 is going to go this way. This guy is going to go here with the joint facing the way the image shows. This is actually really neat. The front piece of the armor looks as though it overlaps the back piece of the armor. That is a really neat detail and not something I've seen on a high-grade kit before. It's flush the way that the pieces meet, but it looks like it overlaps. And being that's the front-facing section of armor, that makes sense. You're going to have more armor on the front as your mech is charging into battle. There's also some really nice details on these tan-colored pieces, so I will definitely be panel lining them. Oh yeah, my neighbor's cruising in his muscle car. It's the end of the season. He's having a good time. It's a rather lightweight car, and it's pushing something like 450 horses. It is a marvelous machine. Now on to step 11. Let's see. D number 4 to a polycap 1. To our shoulder joints and another polycap 11. You do have to be careful when you're trimming the polycap pieces out because they're such soft plastic. It's very easy to accidentally snip into a little stem that sticks out that you need to be there. You need 2D number 4s. So DM, how goes the dungeon building? Clean these up now. Ooh, setting up our tokens for map number 2. I am very excited for this next round as we left mid-combat. And my character, ZAKUIIF2, Ranger Extraordinaire, is very upset. And we're going to trim that a little closer. For such an inexpensive tool, this is the official Bandai one. It's the entry-level one. This is nothing special. It was $10 at the hobby shop. This thing has held its cutting edge phenomenally. And it really does get down in there. Nice flat edge. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, you don't owe me an apology, Dan. And that was like the only place we could end it because it was getting late. And I was, something I never do is I don't drink and like play Dungeons and Dragons. It's not a thing I do often. And I was drinking at the Renaissance Fair earlier that day. And I was tired. And full of mead and ale and delicious, delicious fried food. Oh, so good. Oh, don't worry about it, man. I think we were all off that night. I know I was. I'm just happy that our paladin didn't end up attacking the hill giant again. Yeah, you gotta be careful with that wine, man. That's why I stay away. Like, I have some white Zinfandel. Things get wild. So the flat part of the polycap goes into here. Do that on both of these. That's looking good. B3 and B4. You need to cut B3, B4. Ha ha ha. They did not leave a lot of room on the nubs for these shoulder joints. That is cutting it close. B4 isn't bad, but B3, even then, 4 is still a little snug, but 3 was definitely close for comfort. I've got faith in your alcohol choices, my good sir. I will probably be sipping on some G Fuel or Gamer Sups. Or maybe I'll be extra nice or extra healthy. I'll just be drinking some hydration supplement water with extra electrolytes for peak Ranger performance. I will say the Ranger in Baldur's Gate 3 is very satisfying, but not nearly as satisfying as the Bard has been. My first run through of Baldur's Gate 3, I ran into the issue where the Githyanki would not follow you if you saved at a certain point, which I did. So then either she had to be your party leader or you had to move her manually. So I had to abandon my save with Brielle. Then I started a Halfling Bard. And Bard is one of those classes that it gets memed on a lot. And it always has, but it definitely picked up recently with being super charismatic and like trying to seduce the dragon and blah blah blah. But Bard is a fun class if you play it seriously. Yes, I do recommend Baldur's Gate 3, even at the current price, which is, $60, full price game, and you're only getting early access still. The full game is not coming out till next year, but even when it releases, it's not going to go on sale anytime soon. So I figure pay the money now, enjoy the early access. They did say that every race, class, and subclass from the player's handbook will be in the game. So we know we're going to be getting Dragonborn. And there's a bunch of subclasses they still have to add. Half-Orc hasn't been added yet, but I believe someone data mined and found information about both the Half-Orc and Dragonborn. So they're coming, it's just a matter of when. And happy birthday to you, 3 Sleep Loser. Alright, so now we can start attaching our shoulder joints. That one will go there. Then we need our polycap 11 in the bottom here. Which this is a pretty slick design choice. The nub from the polycap actually acts as an external detail. That's some good forethought. The designers of these kits are just incredible. But I do definitely recommend Baldur's Gate 3. It is taxing on your computer if you have a lower end computer. I'm still running AM3 Plus socket right now. The best AM3 socket possible, but it still shows its age. But with all the next gen AMD stuff coming out early next year, I'll probably pick up a late model like Ryzen 7, something like that, and refresh my computer. Now we're going to need a B5. One of the things I really like about these Zaku kits is that Zaku's traditionally have one spiky shoulder and one shielded shoulder. It's a great design. So we're getting ready to assemble the shielded shoulder first. Shielded shoulder. That's a tongue twister. What I have been doing with my Bard playthrough is really leaning into the Bard, Wizard, Cleric, and Rogue. That's my current team setup. So not a ton of physical damage, But I just stay away from everybody, cast grease, and then set them on fire. Which is so different from the way I normally play those sorts of games, where I'm very much a melee damage, or whether it's ranged or physical. I'm usually not that much of a spellcaster. One of the nice things about the lighter colored plastics is that it is very forgiving as far as discoloration goes if you cut too close. But if you undercut it at all, it doesn't matter if it's light plastic or dark plastic, you're definitely going to notice under any sort of scrutiny. All right, that looks good. So now we have our first arm joint, which goes into our B5. Which goes into our assembly from earlier. That is nice. And then we're going to have to make a hand. So let's see, a B6, an A18, and an A16. I'll cut out the next one for the next arm. '18 and '16. For now, I'm just going to build the basic hand that the instruction calls out for. And then when I decide what weapons I want to have him holding, I'll change it out and put on the different hand pieces accordingly. Although he only really has one other hand option, which is the holding hand. Oh, we do have one open hand though. That the open hand can be pretty cool to pose with. I have some of my RX-78s posed like waving across my other mecha. I have a number of RX-78-2 kits, which that's the OG Gundam. That's Grandpa Gundam. I have a couple different variants in like the standard color. There's the entry grade. I have a Target exclusive super American patriotic one. I have a glow in the dark one that was a prize. There were, I think, 1,500 that were given out in the States. And you got entry by buying Gundams from an authorized seller, which I buy all of mine from a small mom and pop shop called USA Gundam Store. And That got me entry into the contest, and I happened to win. Now, this is a very, very long nub, so I'm going to trim that up. There we go. Hands are rough, because if you make a mistake on the hand, that's something that you're really going to notice anytime you go to move the figure or pose the figure. That looks good, though. Trim this one up. Super quiet outside right now. I can actually hear the grasshoppers in the background. All right, his holding hand is looking good. Clean this up a little more. All right, that looks good. And the hand armor goes there. That is looking lovely. That goes into the wrist joint. We have ourselves a pretty good looking arm, but there is more. Get the shield built. Now, unfortunately, well, perhaps fortunately, this kit does not come with a lot of decals for the rather large blank area on the armor piece. Enjoy your break, Dan. So I'll have to go through my hoard of stickers and see if I have any extra Federation stickers kicking around. What's nice is that you can buy all sorts of licensed decals. And if you don't mind, you can buy unlicensed ones that are pretty nice as well. And all sorts of different sizes and logos. Despite that this is arguably the largest part on the kit, you really need to be careful because it's so big. One is prone to use less caution. But because it's spread out over so much surface area, you're actually more likely to break it. Just take our time. Clean that up. That's looking nice. little more cleanup on this one. Sometimes it'll look like it's perfect, and then you hold it at a different angle, and it just jumps out that you completely missed a section. So this just snaps in. Then we get a nice big poly cap. Which is much easier to put on this way first. Nice. And there you have the arm with the shield attached. So that's a nice blank canvas there. I can really get some good decals and make it look like a proper Federation unit. So we're going to get this other arm finished up. Have our number 5 there. So we have our shoulder joint into the arm cover. Into the forearm. Now we're going to finish building that other hand. So now I need to decide if I have his right arm, which is his shield arm. I might have that holding the Heat Hawk. Well, I think I'm going to go open hand. So now we'll get another knuckle armor piece, which I already cut out. So just trim this guy up. Now we'll trim up our open hand piece. These nubs right at the thumb joint, those ones get me every time. Because they're very thick. And you have to be super careful or else you end up jumping the nub and then your blade digs into the thumb and it looks ridiculous. All right, that looks good. Now we'll attach our knuckle guard. Oh, that's looking great. Okay. So now as the left hand is complete, we're going to build our left shoulder armor, which is fun and spiky and menacing looking. We're going to need another polycap number 1. B16, 17, and 20. 16 is one side of the shoulder pauldron, 17 is the other, and then 20 is the last spike that helps join them together and hides a pretty glaring seam line otherwise. This is another one where you need to be nice and careful because you're trimming on a curved surface. And you really don't want to cut into that curve, because you're not going to cut into that curve the same way on the other piece, and when they join, it will stand out. Definitely take our time not to dig in too deep. I'm going to let the razor blade do a lot of the work. Just slowly trim off layer of plastic. And that is looking great. Oh, the dynamic lighting failed again. Best of luck, good sir. That's an uphill battle. This is one of my least favorite pieces to trim. And as you can see, this is a very small piece. So let me see if I can get the camera to really focus in here. It has very small little nubs on there. Very small that I need to trim. There we go. I need to trim those off very delicately. Hopefully you managed to get the dynamic lighting working. I know I've heard so many people having different issues with it. When it does work, it's fantastic. And it really does bring about a nice level of immersion and gameplay. So one of my coworkers at work, he's a younger guy in his early 20s. He was talking with me today. He plays a lot of Minecraft, and I was talking about D&D. And he's like, I've always wanted to play D&D. So I might be running another short adventure for another group of novices, which could be a lot of fun. Alright, so this piece here, skyle's angled backwards, flat facing us. This joins together. That was a satisfying snap. And there we have our lovely spiked shoulder pauldron. Not a ton of detail on this part, but there's a bit of panel lining there that I can do, which will make it pop a little bit more. Alright, so I'm going to pop these arms on real quick so you guys can get a look at how this is coming along so far. There we go. All right. So as you can see, this is not a nimble mech suit. This guy is chunky. He is there to take damage and deal damage, and he means business. And I love this design. He is just he's a chunky boy. He's a frontline fighter. And he is looking fantastic so far. I love the Zaku's mono eye. That menacing... It was supposed to be red, but when they animated it in the 70s, it turned out pink, and pink just kind of stuck. So you have this menacing, singular eye just glaring down at you. It's such a neat kit. And you can see the T section in the chest. That's because this is a ZAKUIIF2, so they added extra reinforcement over the pilot's cockpit. In most Gundam models, and in the anime and the manga, the pilots are actually in the chest. They're not in the head, like so many other mecha shows tend to portray it. So I'm going to pop these arms back off. And off camera, I will do some panel lining to bring these details up to snuff. Ladies and gents, thank you for watching my stream today. I had a great time working on this kit. I'll focus on the panel lining for the arms, and then all we really have left, the feet, the legs, which these legs are pretty interesting because they have the breathing tubes in there, which really add to that militaristic, industrial look to the Zaku kits, which is part of why I love them so much and why they're my favorite kit design. Then we've just got some weapons to snap together, and we will be done. So, thanks for checking out my stream, and I hope you guys all have a lovely day.